Today we are going to draw on graphs to solve linear systems. Now the systems of equations we are going to be examining are linear lines, meaning straight lines. So on a graph we are going to have two lines and we're going to have to find the solution of those two lines. Now the solution basically means the point of intersection. So right in the middle is the solution, meaning the point of intersection. So I will use POI as point of intersection instead of writing the whole thing. In this question, we are going to solve the systems of equations. So we are going to graph these two lines and find the point of intersection. To do that, I'm going to draw a table of values. So here's my table of values. X values will be on the left, Y on the right. And for the X values, I'm going to use -2, 0, and 2. You can use any values, but make sure you've got some negative numbers in there and positive. So this is our equation that we are going to use, and every time we see X, we're going to use the values on the left-hand side. Okay, so let's start by finding our first Y value. So Y is equal to X. Well, instead of writing X, we are going to use the X here, which is -2, and then plus 4. So -2 plus 4, well, that just comes to +2, so let's write that. Okay, moving on. Now the next Y value, again, same equation, Y is equal to X plus 4. So Y is equal to, and instead of writing X, we're going to write the 0. So it's going to be 0 plus 4. And 0 plus 4 is just 4, so let's write that down. Okay, moving on to the last Y value. Again, same equation, Y is equal to X plus 4, but instead of the X, well, it happens to be +2 here, so we'll write +2 plus 4. And 2 plus 4 is 6. So that's our last Y value. Now let's plot all these Y values on the graph. I'm going to start with my first coordinate. X is equal to -2 right there. And the Y is equal to +2 from here. So let's go up to +2 right there. And that's our first point. Now our second point, X is at 0. And from there, Y value is 4. So let's go all the way up till 4. And that's our second point. Now moving on to our third coordinate, our third point. When X is equal to +2 right there, Y is equal to +6. Let's go up all the way up till +6 right over here and draw our dot. Now that we have our 3 dots, let's connect them with a straight line and make sure you draw arrows at the end of the line to show that it can keep going on. And again, label it. So this line right here is X is equal to +4. Okay, now it's time to draw this line right here. I'm going to rearrange the equation so it's in the format of Y is equal to mx plus b. I usually like to have my x first, but you can use whichever equation works for you. Now again, let's draw our table of values. X on the left side and the Y values will be on the right-hand side. I'm going to use these values -2, 0, and 2. Again, use any, but make sure you have negatives and some positives in there. Okay, so let's use this equation right here to find our Y values. Now starting off with the first one, Y is equal to -x, so I'll leave the negative, but x in this case happens to be -2. So in brackets, I'm going to write the -2, and then +2. Now you know whenever there's two negatives, that's going to make it a positive. So really this equation is +2 plus 2, and 2 plus 2 happens to be 4. So let's write that down. Now let's focus on the next Y value. Again, Y is equal to -x. Well, x in this case happens to be 0, so I'm going to write that 0, and then +2. Now, -0 is just a 0. Don't worry about the negatives when it comes to 0. It's just 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2. And there's our Y value, and let's go on to the last one. Again, Y is equal to negative, and x in this case happens to be 2, so we're just going to write the 2, and then +2, and -2 plus 2 happens to be 0. Okay, so that's our last Y value. Now that we have that, let's actually plot this. So I'm going to start off with the first coordinate. When x is equal to -2 right here, Y is equal to 4. So let's go all the way up to +4. There's our first point. Now let's go on to the second coordinate. When x is equal to 0, which is right over here, your Y value is equal to +2. Okay, second point plotted. Moving on to our last point. When x is equal to +2, right over here, Y is equal to 0. So we're just going to plot it right here. Okay, now let's connect the 3 blue dots with the nice straight blue line, and make sure you draw the arrows, and write down what the line is, y is equal to negative x plus 2. Now let's find the point of intersection. So right here is where both of these lines meet. So let's write POI for point of intersection. Now to find that, you always have to write the x value of the point and then the y value of the point. So let's find the x value of this black dot. So that happens to be -1. Okay, so let's write that down, then comma. And the y value of that point of intersection is +3. All right, and now let's close the bracket, and right there is our answer for the point of intersection. Now let's write it at the bottom too, which is -1, comma 3, close bracket. Same thing again, we've got 2 equations here, but notice there's something different about this equation. I want it to be in the form of y is equal to mx plus b. This way I can figure out the y value and then just plot it. So we are going to rearrange the equation that way. So leave the y as it is. I'm going to leave the 5, but I'm going to move over the 2x, so it becomes -2x. Again, when I'm writing this, I usually like to have the x first, so I'm just going to move it over again, -2 plus 5. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that. Okay, next equation here, I'm going to leave the -2y here. I'm going to move over the x, so it becomes -x, and the +10 remains as it is. Now, I want to get rid of the -2, so I'm going to have to divide everything by -2. Okay, -2 divided by -2 is just y. And that -x divided by -2 becomes positive because you have 2 negatives. And 10 divided by -2 is -5. Now, I can actually draw the table of values and start plotting it. So I'm going to do that for the first line. So x on this side, y on that side. And the x values are going to be -2, 0, and 2. Okay, so let's start with this section right here. So again, we are going to use this first equation for our first line. Y is equal to -2. And instead of the x, well, it happens to be -2, I'm going to put a -2 here. Close bracket, plus 5. Okay, -2 times -2 is +4, so +4 plus 5, and that equals 9. So let's put that right there. Okay, moving on. So again, same equation, y is equal to -2, and instead of the x, well, it happens to be 0, so in brackets, I'm going to put 0, and then plus 5. Now, -2 times 0 is just 0, so it's going to be 0 plus 5. And 0 plus 5 is just 5, so let's put that there. Now, the last y value, again, same equation, y is equal to -2, and the x here happens to be +2, so let's put that in the bracket. And then plus 5, and -2 times 2 is -4, and then plus 5, and all of that equals +1. Now that I have my values, let's actually plot it on the graph. So I'm going to start with this coordinate. So when x is -2, y is +9, which is around here. Okay, that's done. Next one. When x is 0, y is +5. So that's like right over here. That's 5. Okay, moving on. Now when x is 2, which is right here, y is 1. So right over there. Now that I have my 3 dots, let's connect it with a straight line. And don't forget to label your lines. So this is -2x plus 5. And also, let's put the arrows around the end of the lines. Okay, now that we've plotted that, let's move on to the next line. So again, I'm going to draw a table of values. The x here and the y here, and same values, -2, 0, and 2. Okay, let's find the first y value. So this is the equation we are going to use now for the second line. So y is equal to, now x, well, x happens to be -2 here, so I'm going to write -2 over 2 minus 5. Now -2 divided by 2 is just -1, so it's going to be -1 minus 5, which equals -6. Okay, next one. So same equation, y is equal to, now instead of x, it happens to be 0. So I'm going to write 0 over 2, and then minus 5. And 0 divided by 2 is just 0, so 0 minus 5 is equal to -5. So let's put that there. And the last y value. So y is equal to, again, x here happens to be 2, so I'm going to put that +2 over 2 minus 5. And 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so 1 minus 5, that equals -4. Okay, now let's plot all these points. So I'm going to start off with the first one. So when x is -2, which is right over here, y is -6. So now we're going to go down all the way to -6, which is right over here. Okay, now let's go on to the second point. When x is 0, y happens to be -5. So again, we're going down and somewhere around here. And when x is equal to +2, y is equal to -4. So let's go down to -4 and right over here. So now let's connect the dots, and don't forget to label this blue line. So this blue line is y is equal to x over 2 minus 5. Now that we have both lines, let's find the point of intersection. So they intersect right over here. Now make sure you write down your x and y value for the point of intersection. So the x value happens to be +4, and then comma, and the y value here happens to be -3. So let's put that there and close the bracket. So this right here is your final answer. Now let's review some things. When we are dealing with point of intersections, there's 3 types. So let's look at the first type of point of intersection. So we'll look on the left side right here. So on this graph right here, you have one line that goes like this, and the second line goes like that. Notice they intersect at one point, so they have one point of intersection. Now, if you look at the slopes of the line, they're actually both different. So both lines have different slopes, and they both have different x and y intercept. Except if they were to cross the origin. Let me show you. So suppose there was a line that crossed the origin like this, and there was a second line that also crossed the origin. Even though slopes are different, they both intersect right here, and they both have the same x and y intercept. But either way, there's only one intersection. Okay, now the second type looks something like this. You have a line that goes like this and another line that goes like that. Notice these lines don't cross, so there's no intersection. And that always happens with parallel lines. Now, parallel lines will have, in this case, same slope, and they will have different x and y intercepts, so that will be different. But because they're parallel, they're never going to cross, so there will be no solution, meaning no point of intersection. Now, a third type looks like this. Here's the line, and there's the second line that basically goes along the same pathway. In this case, they're going to cross each other all the time. So there are actually infinite intersections. And notice the lines are basically the same, so they also have the same slope. And because, again, they're exactly the same, they're going to have the same x and y intercept. Now, in this case, because they're just touching each other all the time, there's so many intersections, meaning infinite solutions.